I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Tuesday, June the 1st, brought to you in part by Witex Tags. Cattle producers have learned to trust Witex for both one-piece and two-piece tags. A cyber attack, and you know, we talk about black swans. This is a classic black swan. There was a cyber attack on JBS's servers that affected their North American and Australian IT systems. That doesn't have anything to do fundamentally with cattle business, but it's going to affect the cattle business, especially here early in the week. We don't know how much yet, but you know, it's just if it's not one thing, it's another. It's just something always happening. But it seems like almost anything that happens has some kind of effect on your cattle market. You know, when somebody turns a load of cattle over somewhere, it doesn't affect the subway schedule in New York City, and most things that happen in the cattle business don't affect anybody else. But so many things that happen affect the cattle market, and it's likely going to affect, I would say, your futures for the most part. And I would say early in the session, because you're going to have a bunch of buzzards that are going to short the board, day traders and stuff, just assuming that it's going to go down. And enough of them will do it, they'll get it going down, and then those algorithms will take over, and it'll go sharply down for a while, and then I would assume that it might come back a little bit later in the day. We're not for sure how much it's going to hold up JBS, but we do know that several other beef plants are going to be dark on Tuesday. Thank goodness that it happened over Memorial Weekend, because all your plants were going to be dark on Monday anyway, and they probably would have been, if it had been a regular week, we'd have probably lost Monday. Now, we don't know how much further it's going to be. There's been a little bit of uncertainty about it. I've seen messages from JBS that have said they were going to be just like your cactus plant there by Dumas, Texas. They said that it was going to be open for business, and then come back out and then later and said that it wasn't going to be processing. Now, they are still doing a lot of shipping. They're shipping product, and that kind of is curious, because you would think that you would need all that IT stuff and scanners and things like that to do their shipping, but maybe in fact they've got all that labeled and ready to go out the door. But and then I've also seen some people posting stuff on social media and even sending me message thinking that it's some type of a trick or something that JBS has done to try to hold the market up even more. I don't think they would do it right now, for sure. There's so many eyes on them. I mean, we've got Washington buzzing about the cattle business right now, and the monopoly that's going on. But I don't think there's any conspiracy going on here. I think it's just something that happened. It goes back to that Colonial Pipeline here a few weeks ago, whenever we had a cyber attack, shut it down, and then it held up a lot of our East Coast and Mid-Atlantic there from getting gas for a while. When our government didn't step in and do something there, whenever they allowed Colonial to pay that ransom to get that done, that was just asking for more stuff like this. So, and I'm not sure, we haven't had any details that this was anything out of Russia, but, you've got people hackers that are good enough to do that kind of stuff. When they see somebody get a big payoff, they're going to try to do it, and we should have never let that happen, and at least we should have never let it get publicized that ransom was indeed paid on the Colonial Pipeline hacking, and so now that's what they're wanting here. Now, we haven't heard that they've asked for a ransom, and we sure haven't heard that JBS was willing or not willing to pay one. But, people are going to be doing this kind of stuff, and it just kind of reminds us how vulnerable we are. If they attack our protein, they could attack all other kinds of food out there, or drinking water, different, they could do some things that are a lot worse. But I think maybe the reason that they attack JBS is because they're America's, or not America, the world's largest meat processor. And so that probably put a bullseye on them from being the world's largest. And it's not just the United States. Like I said, it's going to be affecting Canada. I did see that definitely going to be affecting one of the main JBS plants up there in Alberta. Also affecting Australia. They sure wouldn't do that on purpose, because Australians running really short on supplies anyway. And the way that they buy those, it wouldn't allow them to stand to gain anything by that. So we're just going to see what happens. I don't know if they're going to try to gouge any more on the box beef cutout values. We've already got those at such a level right now. I guess they could, but the packers pretty much set those prices, and they've held them pretty well steady. I mean, they've got choice up to about $3.30 now, and they've held those pretty steady here the last couple of weeks. Yes, they'll probably add to them some, but I would say, and depending on what the board does on Monday and Tuesday, they will come back with some charity bids near steady where they've been for the last few weeks. We've been holding right in there around 119, 120, and 190 dressed for our fat cattle, and we haven't earned that market. We likely could have lost a lot more of it, but they've been coming with the charity bids because there's such a big gap between what they're getting for their product and what the cattle people are getting paid for theirs, and they are getting a lot of negative press about it. And they are getting, us cattle people are finally getting the word into Washington, D.C. We had a big talk last week about the Round-Smith Senate letter that went out, cattle crisis letter, and it just pointed out what's going on here and that something's got to be done. Had a big call for a lot of other lawmakers to sign on to it. And then we saw that petty, contradicting press release from North American Meat Institute, which was a big slap in the face. And I tell you what, people are just getting so frustrated with this. And then the kicker on the North American Meat Institute's press release, it had the beef checkoff check mark on the release that was a total slap in the face and contradicting a Senate letter that we've been trying to get going for a long time. And then to have that checkoff check mark on there that your producers are having to pay for was a big slap in the face. And I talked to a lot of people that got on mid to late week there and went to checkoffvote.com and went on there and signed a petition to get a referendum on that beef checkoff deal. So we'll see what happens, but I would say your board's going to be down hard, and just people trying to take advantage of a black swan event that's happened, and we just can't do anything about that. But it's going to keep the eye on beef and beef processing, and we kind of do need to keep that going for a while, because the word's getting out that this deal just ain't right, and we need to get something changed on it. Let's look at your board for last week. June live cattle futures, Monday was down 92, Tuesday was down 2 cents, Wednesday down 27, Thursday down a dime, and Friday down 47 cents. So down every day of the week on your spot live cattle contract, ending the week with June at 115.87, down $1.80. August down 232 for the week at 118.60. So we haven't been getting along too good anyway. How about feeder cattle? May went off the board like on Thursday at 136.30. So now we've got this big gap for the all-important August contract, and it was holding up there pretty well. But mid to late week, once it became the spot month, and we saw this big gap between what cattle are selling for right now and what they're proposed to be selling in August there, it did cause it to back up a little bit, and we probably expected that some. But August feeder cattle, Monday was up 42 cents, Tuesday up 2.55 because we saw corn down there earlier in the week. But then it started backing off. Wednesday, August feeder cattle down $1.47. Thursday down $2.35, and Friday down $1.50. with August feeder cattle ending the week at 150, 135, down 235 for the week. September ended the week at 150, 352. I mentioned corn. Your old crop July 656 3/4 to end the week, down just 2 3/4 cents. So kind of it was a little volatile, but didn't end up changing a whole lot for the week. New crop December corn ended the week 545 1/2, down a penny a bushel. Beans July 1530 1/2, up 4 1/4 cent. November 1372 3/4, up 12 1/4 for your new crop soybeans. Let's talk about your fat cattle through Thursday of last week, and didn't have much trade at all on Friday with a big long holiday weekend coming up. So this is most of them, but we still, USDA was shut down on Memorial Day too, so we won't get the wrap up until our next visit, but this will be most of it. Through Thursday, 73,900 head of negotiated fat cattle sold in your 5-area feeding region. Live sales, steers and heifers range from 116, and that 16 and 17 was on the online sale. And we talked last week, I'm not sure what that was all about. Didn't see any private treaty sales like that, but it was mostly 118 and up. But 116 to 122, mostly 119 to 120, with a weighted average on live steers in your 5-area feeding region of 119.64, and that was only down 7 cents a hundredweight from the end of last week or the previous week. And how about dress sales? Steers and heifers range from 187 to 192, mostly 190 to 191, with a weighted average on dress steers of 190.66. That was actually up 10 cents per hundredweight compared to the previous week. It was mostly steady right in there, and like I told you earlier, those are pretty much charity bids. I mean, the Packers had kind of run out of gall to try to make any more going on without any reason for it at all, other than they just have all the leverage and they've got a complete monopoly on this industry. But we'll see how much gall they have to try to turn up the gouging a little bit more this week and take advantage of the cyber attack on JBS. But Friday we didn't have much trade. Like I said, Iowa sold a couple of hundred head, 21,400 head for the week, but Friday sales were just 117, which was the bottom of the price range live, and then 192 dressed, which was the top, so you couldn't really judge anything by that. Nebraska, a couple hundred head there, 28,600 head for the week. Just some dress sales on Friday at 192. No trade in your southern plains. Last week, Kansas, through Thursday, Kansas had sold 13,800 head, which is a little light. Texas, 9,200 head, which is actually pretty good for this day and time for them. And Colorado, only 1,300 head, which is unbelievable that that's all we get reported for them. But let's look at your box beef cutout values, and this is what's got everybody so frustrated, is what your packers are charging their buyers for the product, and then we can't seem to get any decent portion of it. But choice cuts, your weighted average on all of last week's choice cut spot sales, $329.64. That was up another $6.50 from the weighted average from the previous week. And late in the week it was a little bit higher than that. It was almost $331. Dress sale or select, 303.34 was the weighted average on all of last week. Unbelievable, over $3 a pound for select product. That was up $3.43, and to end the week it actually backed off a little bit late in the week and was just about $3.01 there late in the week. Another light movement of spot sales, 493 loads is all. How about your slaughter for last week? We saw a very disappointing Saturday because a lot of your plants let the folks off on Saturday so they could enjoy the 3-day weekend. So we fell pretty well short of the previous week. 629,000 last week. That was 40,000 less than the normal week the week before, and 102,000 more than the same week a year ago when we were still trying to get back on track from the worst of the COVID there. But let's talk about some other things. You know, it's the start of the new month, so here on Feeder Flash, we always give you the market, Zactran market of the month. And for June, your market of the month is going to be Ozarks Regional Stockyard, West Plains, Missouri. That's Randy Hoover's sale barn there, and I tell you what, he's about the sharpest knife in the drawer. You want to talk about somebody who knows the value of cattle there. But especially of late here, he's took on Steve Anderson, and he's been in the video business for a long time. They've been doing an in-house video there almost every week, but really getting along good with it. And you know, you might not think that, and I couldn't believe whenever Randy Hoover called me and wanted to start broadcasting their sale. And then whenever, you know, I found out that they wanted to start doing in-house videos, I really couldn't believe it. And then getting so good getting along with them, it was just unbelievable. But you got to give it to them. I tell you what, that's about as snappy as sale. And I've always said I went there for years. My favorite market reporter for the state that I supervised, Dave Smith, the late great Dave Smith, was there. And I always, when I was out traveling around, made a point to go down there and visit him, and he reported that market for decades. But enjoyed being my time down there. I'll still say that's the only sale barn that I've ever been to that gets rings full of every kind of cattle that there is. I mean, from the best one that walks to the plainest, and all in between. And they've got all kinds of regular buyers there that's got orders for the plainer cattle to the best ones that walk, and I tell you what, it's about as snappy a sale as you'll get. But congratulations to Ozarks Regional Stockyard, West Plains, Missouri, for being the Zactran Market of the Month. How about your real-time index ended the week last week before the holiday. Actually, this includes Monday's sale. We only had one, but that kind of helped out a little bit because it was a humdinger. But your real-time index late on Monday sitting at 137.15. That was up $2.43 from the end of the previous week. Cash feeders in your sale barns, right along with that, $2 to $4 higher. We're just kind of running out of them, and we had a lot of feeder weight cattle coming off wheat. They were still pretty attractive to the buyers, and even though they didn't get much support from your cash fat cattle or the board, they still want those cattle because we're just about out of them. You're not going to be able to get enough feeder weight feeder cattle, and surely not one owner cattle that's been together, or for sure you know, one raising of feeder type cattle. You're not going to be able to get enough to wad a shotgun here in just a few weeks, because we're going to get into the summertime doldrums where there's not going to be a lot of feeders selling. We'll start seeing them selling on the videos, and then we'll start seeing some private treaty trade in the country, and I'll try to tell you guys as much as I can about that when I hear about it. But we're just about winding down, and guys that still wanted to had some orders and wanted to fill some empty pens with sure enough good feeders, they got aggressive on them, and $2 to $4 higher. Calves up to $7 higher, and I'm talking middleweight calves all the way down to your peewees. A lot of that is, I mean, we're getting some rain around, guys. And you know, I know the guys in the northern plains and areas are still suffering from dry conditions. They're having to sell a lot of pears and things in South Dakota and different places like that. But I tell you what, in the southern plains, it is wet country. I mean, you wouldn't think of West Texas being the tropics, but it was this week. I tell you, I was able to go down on the holiday weekend down to Ruidoso, New Mexico, to enjoy the horse races and good time down there with friends and family. And then, you know, coming back, you know, when you've got water standing in the pastures in and around Roswell, New Mexico, you know that it's strange. And talked to some of my friends that were going straight on out into Central Texas, and they said, you know, Snyder, Texas, Roscoe, Texas, where you hook onto I-20 there, just water standing. I mean, just looking like lakes out there. And they've gotten so much rain there. It's unbelievable. More rain than they get, you know, in a year or more, you know, just in a couple of days. But, you know, getting some moisture is always a good thing, and you get it in a really dry country, and it helps out a lot. So God bless we got the rain. How about your own one and only sale that we really had over the holiday weekend? It's in Russell, Iowa. Russell Livestock Auction there. They're a DV auction customer. They had about 5,300 head there for their special feeder cattle auction. Feeders feeder weight cattle, and they had kind of dropped off in some of your Thursday, Friday sales too. But on Monday, holiday there, your steers were kind of steady to $2 lower. Feeder weights in the 8s and 9s. Heifers were steady to $2 higher, so just kind of unevenly steady there on your feeder weights. Calves and a lot of middleweight calves. Had a lot of really nice middleweight calves from 5 to 750 pounds. They sold $2 to $6 higher. You look at this automated market report from Cattle Market Central, and it shows you all the cattle that went through the ring there. And I'll give you some of the weighted average weights and prices in your most popular weight groups. About 518 head of the 5-weight steer calves averaged 556 at 172.52 on the weighted average price. That's pretty handsome there. How about 695 head of your 6-weight steers in Russell, Iowa, averaged 649 at 160.34. 716 head of the 7-weight calves averaged 748 at 147.28. And 665 head of the 8-weight feeder steers averaged 833 at 139.53. How about some heifers? 638 head of 5-weight heifers averaged 556 at 149.12. Almost 700 head of 6-weight heifers averaged 648 at 140.98. And 411 head of the 7-weight heifers averaged 738 at 133.57. Top price that I saw out of Russell on an individual quote in your Zactran top quote for the day was 67 head. The 767 pound steers bring 150.250. That's your feeder flash for Tuesday.